Is the EU setting up a European army? It's a common claim that's thrown around both by critics of the EU and pro-European voices who want an ever closer union. And as the European elections draw near, the topic is doing the rounds even more than usual. theCUBE unpacks the myth. The idea that the EU has or is creating a pan-European army that will conscript citizens of member states is often used to attack the bloc's leadership and general direction. It's typically peddled by right-wing parties and Eurosceptics on social media to accuse the EU of stripping away member states' sovereignty. One of the best examples of this was during the Brexit debate, when Leave supporters whipped up fears of British citizens being drafted into an EU army. But long story short, no, there's no such thing as an EU army.
As far as I know, and I consider myself relatively informed, there are no secret plans locked up in offices somewhere in Brussels with this type of plan. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with the word myth in this context and in this debate.
The EU does, of course, have a common security and defence policy, together with a defence agency, but it's far from it being an actual army.
You have individual nation states or member states, in the case of the EU, agreeing by treaty to cooperate closely on defence. And what that really means in practice, and we have lots of cases of that, by the way, is that you can deploy force abroad. You have a head of a mission, but that mission is normally made up of individual member states, all collaborating with each other.
There are, of course, other European military partnerships and alliances too, most notably NATO. The majority of NATO's member states are also EU members, so rather than integrating their forces under EU mechanisms, further alignment through NATO might be the best way forward for European defence.
We should shift our attention to what member states obviously find most important, and that is NATO. So I would say try to align the contributions of the European allies within NATO so that all European NATO allies together have a complete set of forces. And what they are lacking, well, there you can use the EU instruments to help the European NATO allies build that. Use the European Defence Fund to invest so that Europeans can build the air defence platforms that we don't have.
You can read more on the myth of the EU army and the European elections on Euronews.com.